What is the great controversy theme, and why is it so important for the Christian church today? I believe the answer to these questions can be found looking at our past. Welcome to a special episode of Protest and Liberty Today, where we continue to look at Reformation beliefs as I've discussed them in my recent book, The Reformation and the Remnant. And now we're going to look at Chapter 2 on the Great Controversy. What is the Great Controversy, and why is it relevant today? What is the Great Controversy? Well, many Seventh-day Adventists recognize that as a name of a book about the history of the Christian church from the time of the death of Christ and the destruction of Jerusalem to modern day and even prophetic events in the future. However, that title of the book was taken from a larger underlying theme, the Great Controversy theme about the conflict between good and evil throughout the history of the world, and especially in the history of the Christian church. Now, many Adventists think that this theme and its great controversy form was created by Seventh-day Adventists, but really this theme has roots deep in Reformation history, on the free will side rather than the Reformed tradition. The story begins often with a fellow called Jacob Arminius. Arminian theology is the theology that believes that God has created humans with free will, and it's named after Jacob Arminius, a Dutch theologian of the 17th century. But the fact that this theology is named after Arminius obscures the larger truth that there were reformers before Arminius who believed in freedom of the will. Some want to make out that Jacob Arminius was Johnny-come-lately to the Reformation party, a kind of alien belief transfixed into the Reformation tree. But the fact is there were reformers, as I've said before Arminius, who believed in human free will. The whole Anabaptist radical Reformation tradition believed that Christ died for all people and all could freely choose him. Luther's associate, Philip Melanchthon, also believed in human free will. It's well known that Calvin did not, but many Christians don't realize that Luther was also more Calvinist in his outlook regarding human free will. So it's not that the radical reformers, the Anabaptists, were so concerned about the dignity and greatness of man. It's that they were concerned about God's character and the origin of evil. If God made certain people who could only sin and had no choice but to sin, then was not God really the author of evil? And these were the concerns of Jacob Arminius, and we have evidence that he read both the writings of Philip Melanchthon as well as the radical reformers. And he was the most articulate writer and thinker and spokesperson about these ideas in relation to human free will, God's sovereignty, and God's character. Arminius was concerned about viewing God not just or even primarily as all-powerful, but as all good and loving. He was concerned about the character of God. And in putting together this picture of God, he came up with a list of 5 points that we often know from the Calvinist side as TULIP, but this is the opposite. The first point is unlimited atonement, that Christ died for all. The second is conditional election. Whether someone is saved or lost depends on their choice about whether they're going to accept God's gift or not. The third point, Arminius acknowledged, along with other Calvinists, total depravity. All parts of man are depraved and fallen. His mind, his will, his physical being, all needed rescue. But that number 4, unlike the conservative Calvinists, he believed in something called prevenient grace. Grace which was provided to all, which could cause all people, if they chose to act on it, to choose God. God didn't just choose an elite elect who would be saved and nobody else had the chance. No, this prevenient grace came to all. And his fifth point was a continued choice, not the once saved, always saved, but he was open to the idea that Christians didn't lose their power of choice once they accepted God. So this was a picture of God who was not just powerful, but also, and maybe even more importantly, was fair and just to the creatures that he had created. Now, Arminius had a colleague who was a lawyer by the name of Hugo Grotius, and he created something called the moral government of God. And it helped explain some difficult conundrums in Christian belief, including a central one of why did Christ have to die?